It is my pleasure to welcome back to the pulpit our dear friend, Chaplain Jesse Ford, with a message about befriending the unknown. Jesse.
Hi, friends.
Hi.
It is so good to be back with you once again. Happy Earth Day.
Yes.
A few days early. Happy Earth Month. Happy Earth Year. Happy Earth. Happy Earth. You know, there are just so many things that a person could choose to pay attention to in this month of April. Green up, flowering, bird song, the shifting coastal winds that let you know that the seasons are changing and that warmer weather is on the way. This is the familiar and comforting seasonal round, something that we expect and that happens. And yet, we know things are changing, and with change comes uncertainty. And I have to say, I just love the readings from today already. They were just right on point, right on point. With change comes uncertainty, and I want to begin with something that Rebecca Solnit, who some of you may know as a writer, has written. She said, hope locates itself in the premises that we don't know what will happen, and that in the spaciousness of uncertainty, there's room to act. That's where it is, in the spaciousness of uncertainty. When you recognize uncertainty, you recognize that you may be able to influence the outcomes, you alone or in concert with a few dozen or several million people. Hope embraces the unknown and the unknowable. So, and in this way, it's really different than the certainty, she explains, of both optimists and pessimists, because optimists are sure it'll all work out and you don't have to do anything. And pessimists sort of just remove themselves from the equation. However, those who embrace uncertainty, we can take advantage of that. It's the belief that what we do really matters, even though how and when it may matter, who and what it may impact, these are not things that we can know in advance. So I want to start with that sort of upbeat note on the whole theme of uncertainty. I want to focus on three stories or situations. They're well known to all of you, but what I want you to pay attention here is to how, when I raise these issues, the concept of not knowing what that raises inside of you. So, the first story. No wonder April is the month of Earth Day, right? It's a time when we pause for just a moment to consider the nature of our relationship with this beautiful living planet, to which we are latecomers as species go, right? I mean, butterflies have been around for 200 million years. Humans, well, depending on what you call human, right? Somewhere between 100,000 and 5 million. Okay, still, short timer, you know. And perhaps it's for exactly this reason that we are such a young species that we often forget, like a 2-year-old, that the world is not all about us. We forget that. And that there are valuable lessons to be learned by attentively observing our elders, who are, in fact, pretty much any other species on the planet. We tend to swagger about willfully relative to said butterfly and many others. We'll come back to butterflies in a bit. The role of culture is to act as a brake on these tendencies to, and me, everything. And many cultures have been very successful in this, in helping to educate their people in how to be with the rest of the planet. There are many, many cultures who have spent millennia on that project. Sadly, the current dominant culture, which is now sort of globally, is not one of them, because the global standard these days is all about accelerators, not brakes. There are no brakes on this process. And so it's true, and this is sort of the punchline of this story that we all know so well, that we young'uns, we little tiny toddler species, we all by ourselves are the ones that are making this planet unlivable. The toddlers. We're creating an unpredictable, unknowable future that's inhospitable for many different kinds of species, including ours, with climatic conditions that are definitely unknown at this point. Definitely unknown. So, that is one kind of not knowing. It's unknown territory that we're going into. We don't really know anything about what it's going to look like. We don't know from year to year. We often don't know from month to month. All we know is that things are changing. So that's one kind of unknown. And I'll just wrap this section up by saying, as we approach the rebirth of many kinds of life during the springtime season, it really behooves us to consider how we can move forward into this unknown future, including how to modify our attitudes and behaviors towards the millions of other species that in one way or another give us our very life. Okay, so that's one setting for the unknown. Second story. This month, we humans have taken another huge step in expanding our capacious, youthful energies well beyond our planetary home, right? On April 1st, under a full moon, a black man, a white woman, and 2 white men began a journey of just over 9 intense days together, slingshotting around the backside of the moon with enormous media coverage. So millions of people were aware of this in real time. And I'm guessing that there was the entire, well, maybe not the entire, but there was a huge range of emotional reactions to this. Anything from awe and delight and enthusiasm and glee to anger, maybe resentment that all this money is being spent for that when it could be somewhere else, fear for the safety of the crew, fascination, curiosity, apprehension, all of these things. For example, more than 50 years ago, I had an elderly neighbor who was deeply saddened. You know, there were 3 years there of Apollo flights that had people landing on the moon. So about a dozen men were walking around on the moon, and she would say, "Poor old moon, why can't they just leave it alone?" So she was not excited, she was not angry, she was sad. She was sad. Now, as an interesting corollary, since that time, 5 countries and 2 commercial concerns have collectively landed almost a dozen more uncrewed missions on the moon. And so the possibilities for lunar geological exploration, which is to say geological exploitation, are beginning to unfold with unknown consequences. I mean, this was Artemis 2, but there's a whole Artemis plan build out from here that involves using the moon to help us out. So those are 2 stories. We don't know where this is all going. We really don't. We have no idea. There's a great deal of uncertainty, and in that uncertainty, there's a great deal of opportunity. I mean, if it was all fixed, there would be nothing to work with. But it's not. It's not fixed at all. And so we can work with that. And we've got experience, because even without our own human bungling about, life has this way of repeatedly introducing the unfamiliar. New seasons, unexpected changes, unanswered questions, the unknown, which can often feel like a threat, can feel like something to resist or to fear. And so we brace ourselves, we tighten our grip, and we wait for it to pass. But what if the unknown is not an enemy? What if it's an invitation? So to befriend the unknown means to do something radically different. What if, instead of bracing in resistance, we breathe and listen? What if, for instance, we get acquainted, form relationships with some of the other species around us? What if we were to do that? What if that were to be our response to this? What if we were to be present in the moment? What if, instead of controlling ourselves and other species, we begin to pay very close attention to those with whom we're sharing the planet, trusting that we will learn what we need to know when we need to know it, if we just listen, slowing down, as one of the readings said, slow down, rest, breathe, take a step, wash the dishes, right? What if we cultivated the willingness to not run away from our unpleasant feelings? What if we developed the capacity to be able to sit with them? What if, instead of fearing and struggling to eliminate our fear, we simply acknowledge it? Oh, I am afraid. And we agree to accompany it, like a friend. Oh, I see you, fear. I see you. I see you. Let me walk with you a while. So this is a way of befriending fear, the fear of the unknown, fear of scarcity, fear of existential loneliness, fear of pain. And sages from many wisdom traditions recommend repeatedly befriending one's fears as a formational step in peacemaking, both internally and in the world around us. It takes a great deal of courage. It takes a brave spirit. It's hard work. It's not easy. If it were easy, everybody would already be doing it. We don't want to do it. We don't want to do it. we don't want to do it, we don't want to do it. But we don't have to. I mean, we can continue to run around being afraid and fearing the unknown, but we don't have to do that either. There are choices that we can make. And befriending those fears, I would submit, is perhaps some of the most important work that we can do in these monstrous times. Fear is real. Can we take it for a walk? Can we take it for a walk? Can we let it have a nap? Can we say, I'm not going to go away. You're safe. Why don't you take a nap? Now, here's the third story, and I want to pull our attention back from the cosmos and species extinctions and climate traumas to focus on a major headline about what's up this week with our own species, namely the absolutely electrifying news that Viktor Orban lost the Hungarian election by a landslide. Now, what's up with that? Well, he is the poster boy for authoritarian, totalitarian control. He is what all these wannabe dictators are aspiring to. And what just happened? I mean, really, he wrote a new constitution and implemented it. He just changed the constitution. He changed the structure of the courts. He changed the electoral system. Is this sounding familiar? He changed the economy. His corrupt regime massively enriched his family at the expense of impoverishing the entire country, which had sunk to being one of the poorest countries in Europe under his tenure. Hungary, poster child for totalitarianism, and yet he lost by a landslide. Some of the pundits think that this is mainly because people lost their fear. They lost their fear of war. They lost their fear of invasion. They lost their fear of Orban's retribution. And they said, no, we're not having it. So, dwelling in our uncertainty, walking with our fears, I want to give you a metaphor now that's so deliciously described in this book by Karen Herring called, the name just went out of my, something about change. Something about change. Anyway, she has written this wonderful book, and the prologue to it is this incredible description of what happens to butterfly caterpillars. And I would like to give you this metaphor that walking with our fears is in many ways like agreeing to enter the chrysalis formed by our caterpillar selves, okay? Our caterpillar selves have fed voraciously for a really long time, and we have grown, we've shed our skin 4 or 5 times, and the final time, this skin that we've shed has turned out to be a layer of shell under that final layer of skin. And can we agree to enter that chamber, that dark chamber, that chrysalis, understanding that we are going to be completely reduced to goo, okay? Before we reemerge, transformed and trembling in the wind. By walking with our fears, we are agreeing to enter that space, letting go of what is no longer, and living in the not yet. In the biological world of the actual caterpillar, Its whole caterpillar way of being, as Karen Herring puts it, is utterly digested except for a set of highly organized cells embedded from the beginning that contain everything needed for the change that lies ahead. Wouldn't it be too cool if we had that too? Why wouldn't we? In Herring's words, these cells, called imaginal cells, start multiplying rapidly, and they vibrate at different frequencies. And they cluster according to their resonance of this vibration. And as they do that, they communicate with each other until they grow into a shared knowledge of how to be something new. Some newly created interdependence of being designed for flight and migration, for survival across distance and season, time and space. This might be a good metaphor for what happened in Hungary. People clustering according to resonance, which could be interests or abilities, temperaments, whatever, communicating with each other until they grow into a shared knowledge of how to be something new, something that takes flight in a newly created interdependence of being. Will this, in one step, lead to a more just, more peaceful nation? Unknown. Unknown, friends. Time and the action of people will tell. But this is how the unknown can stretch us if we allow it, revealing parts of ourselves that we would never meet otherwise. Courage that we didn't know we had. Patience that we are forced to grow because that's how it works. Strength and stamina that we develop simply by the action of keeping on keeping on. In this way, we grow in our understandings of ourselves and of who we really are. And we leave ourselves, both as individuals and as newly forming communities, open to transformation into unimaginable futures. Unimaginable. We can't yet imagine it because it all depends on who's in the mix and how they're in the mix. And I would like to invite you to consider being in that mix, which I think you are, because after all, you're here, right? So to recap, how do we actually befriend the unknown? We pause instead of panicking. We let uncertainty be a space, not a threat. We stay present. The future is unknown, but the present is not. So we stay present. And this is maybe the hardest of the hard steps. We trust the process because growth is often invisible while it's happening. The unknown is not here to undo you. It is here to unfold you. It is a place where control ends and trust begins, where fear softens into curiosity, where endings quietly become beginnings. So when you find yourself standing at the edge of what you cannot see, do not rush back. Take a breath take a step and dare to make a friend of the unknown.